For a long time, everything around a Bugatti Chiron rebuild project seemed to be happening in public, but at the same time, a very important part of the story was completely hidden. While millions of viewers were watching the progress, watching the damaged supercar slowly turn into a global discussion, there was someone who was not in front of the camera, but still deeply connected to everything that was happening behind it. That person is Hannah, the partner of British YouTuber and car builder Matt Armstrong. From the outside, people usually focus only on Matt, the cars, and the huge rebuilding challenges. But behind that world, there's a normal life that continues under pressure, stress, and constant attention from the internet. Hannah's silence during the early stages of the Bugatti story was something many viewers noticed, but few understood. She did not speak publicly. She did not post detailed updates, and she did not explain what it felt like living next to such a massive and expensive project. Instead, she stayed in the background, dealing with everyday responsibilities while also experiencing the emotional weight of what was unfolding. The Bugatti involved in the story was not just any car. It was a rare and extremely valuable machine, and its damage created a situation that attracted global attention. As the rebuild story grew online, the pressure around it also grew offline. For Hannah, this meant dealing with a life that was partly normal and partly controlled by a very unusual situation. The silence she kept was not emptiness. It was stability. While the internet debated numbers, repair methods, and possibilities, she focused on keeping life steady behind the scenes. This contrast between public excitement and private reality is what makes her perspective so important in this story. It shows that behind every viral automotive project, there are real people living real lives, often without recognition. The entire situation begins with a moment that changed everything. A serious crash involving a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, one of the rarest hypercars in the world. This car was not just expensive, it was also extremely limited in production, making every single unit valuable and important to collectors. The accident reportedly happened in Miami, where the car was heavily damaged, with the front end destroyed, airbags deployed, and critical components like carbon fiber panels and mechanical systems severely affected. The estimated repair costs quickly reached extremely high numbers, with insurance discussions reportedly going into millions. At that level, insurance companies often decide that repairing the car is not practical, and instead, they classify it as a total loss. That is exactly what happened here. The car was marked as salvage and sent to Copart, a place where damaged vehicles are auctioned after being written off. For most cars, this is the end of the story. But for a Bugatti, especially one so rare, it becomes something much more complicated. This is where the attention of the automotive world began to grow. People started asking if a rebuild was even possible, and more importantly, who would attempt such a difficult task. The situation became even more intense when the car was linked to content creator Alex Gonzalez, known online as FCA Alex G, who reportedly wanted to recover and rebuild the vehicle. This decision turned a private accident into a public challenge. The moment the car entered Copart, it was no longer just a damaged machine. It became a symbol of possibility versus limitation. At the same time, this was also the moment when pressure began to build not just on the builder, but also on everyone connected to the project. A $6 million hypercar is not something that can be treated lightly. Every decision carries weight, every mistake carries cost, and every step becomes part of a global conversation. This is the starting point of a story that would soon become much bigger than just a repair job. When the Bugatti situation became serious, attention quickly turned toward one person who had built a reputation for doing things most people would consider unrealistic. That person is Matt Armstrong, a British automotive YouTuber who built his career by taking heavily damaged cars and bringing them back to life on camera. His journey did not start with luxury cars or massive budgets. It began with simple projects, including rebuilding a crashed Audi that belonged to his partner at the time. That early project unexpectedly became a foundation of a massive online audience. Over time, his channel grew into one of the most popular automotive rebuild platforms online, with millions of subscribers and even more viewers watching his detailed repair work. What makes his story unique is not just the cars he works on, but the way he documents everything in a simple and honest style. He shows the problems, the mistakes, the delays, and the challenges without hiding anything. This approach built trust with his audience and also attracted attention from people in the automotive world. So when a rare Bugatti Chiron per sport was damaged and written off, it was not surprising that his name came up in conversations. People believed that if anyone outside of a factory environment could attempt something like this, it would be him. However, the reality of such a project is far more complex than most viewers realize. A Bugatti is not just a car. It is a highly advanced machine with extremely limited parts availability, specialized systems, and strict manufacturer control. Rebuilding it is not just about skill, but also access, resources, and approvals. Still, the idea of attempting it created massive interest online. It represented a challenge that went far beyond normal automotive content. For Matt, this meant stepping into a situation where expectations were extremely high, and the margin for error was extremely small. And while the public focused on the technical side behind the scenes, people like Hannah were beginning to feel the pressure in a very different way. While most viewers were focused on the technical challenge of rebuilding a rare Bugatti, the real emotional weight of the situation was happening away from the cameras. Hannah, the partner of Matt Armstrong, was living through the entire experience in a very different way from the audience. She was not tracking part numbers, insurance decisions, or salvage auction details. Instead, she was dealing with the daily reality of life, continuing under unusual stress. When a major project like this takes over someone's life, it does not only affect the person working on the car, it also affects routines, conversations, time at home, and emotional energy. Even though Matt was the one physically working on the project, Hannah was the one helping maintain stability in everything else around it. This includes managing everyday responsibilities, supporting the household, and dealing with the unpredictability that comes with high-pressure work. From her perspective, the Bugatti was not just a global automotive story. It was something that influenced their entire lifestyle. Long working hours, constant planning, and public attention can slowly build pressure in ways that are not always visible to viewers. There's also the emotional side of watching someone you care about take on a challenge that carries risk, pressure, and public expectations. Even if the project is exciting from the outside, living next to it every day is very different. Hannah's silence during this time reflects something important. Not everyone involved in a viral story is part of the spotlight. Some people are managing the foundation that allows everything else to function. While the internet focused on the car, she focused on balance. While viewers discussed outcomes, she experienced the process. This hidden side of the story adds depth to what otherwise looks like just another automotive rebuild. It shows that behind every major online project, there are private lives adapting in real time, often without recognition or attention. As the Bugatti rebuild story grew, it stopped being just a private challenge and turned into a global discussion. Millions of people were watching updates, analyzing progress, and forming opinions about what could or could not be done. This level of attention creates a unique kind of pressure that is difficult to fully understand unless you experience it directly. For Matt Armstrong, it meant every decision was being watched and judged by a very large audience. For Hannah, it meant living next to a situation that was constantly being discussed online, even though she was not part of the public conversation. The internet can amplify both excitement and criticism, and in this case, both were present at the same time. Some viewers were impressed by the ambition of the project, while others were skeptical about whether such a rebuild was realistic. This constant debate created an environment where nothing stayed private for long. Even small updates could become major talking points within hours. In situations like this, the emotional impact often spreads beyond the person in front of camera. It affects the people around them in quieter, but very real ways. Daily life becomes linked with public expectations, and personal moments can feel influenced by external opinions. This is why Hannah's experience matters in this story. While she was not responding to comments or participating in discussions, she was still living inside the environment those discussions created. The Bugatti itself became more than a car. It became a symbol of ambition, pressure, and public curiosity. Every step of the rebuild carried meaning far beyond mechanics. It represented reputation, risk, and belief in what is possible. And in the middle of all this, life continued at home, away from cameras and away from headlines, where the real emotional cost of such a project quietly built up over time. One of the most important parts of this story is what the audience did not see. Online, viewers see progress videos, explanations, and dramatic updates. What they do not see is everything that happens in between those moments. For Hannah, this in-between space is where most of the real experience exists. It is the everyday conversations, the quiet evenings after long working days, and emotional processing that never makes it into a video. Large automotive projects often focus on visible progress, engines, panels, repairs, and final results. But behind those visible stages, there are countless hours of problem solving, waiting, planning, and dealing with setbacks. These moments are rarely shared because they do not make exciting content, but they are where most of the effort actually lives. From Hannah's perspective, this means being close to a story that the world sees in highlights, while she experiences it in full length. The difference between public storytelling and private reality can be significant. Online audiences see success and progress, but behind the scenes, there are challenges, delays, and emotional ups and downs. This creates a gap between perception and reality. Hannah's role in this story highlights that gap clearly. She is part of the real-world foundation that allows the public-facing content to exist, even though she is not always visible in it. Her silence is not absence. It is participation in a different form. It is a kind of support that does not need attention, but still plays an important role in keeping everything stable. In stories like this, it is easy to focus only on the main figure and the main project. But the truth is that no major journey happens alone. There are always people behind the scenes who experience the same journey in different ways. An understanding that gives the story a deeper meaning at its core. The Bugatti rebuild story is not just about a damaged hypercar or a technical challenge. It is about people, pressure, ambition, and the way modern internet culture turns private projects into global events. The car itself is rare, valuable, and complex, but the human story around it is what makes it truly interesting. For Matt Armstrong, it represents another step in a career built on pushing limits and proving what can be done outside traditional systems. For Hannah, it represents a life experience shaped by something she did not choose publicly, but still lived through privately. This difference in perspective is what gives the story depth. Online audiences often focus on results, progress, and outcomes. But real life is not just about final stages. It is about the emotional journey that happens while those stages are unfolding. Hannah's silence throughout much of this story reflects a very real truth. Not everyone involved in high-profile projects wants or needs to be part of the public conversation. Some people contribute by maintaining stability, emotional balance, and everyday normality, while extraordinary events happen around them. That role is often invisible, but deeply important. The Bugatti itself may continue to attract attention as the rebuild progresses, but the human side of the story will always remain just as significant. Behind every viral video and every dramatic update, there is a real household, real relationships, and real pressure being managed quietly. And that is what makes this story more than just another automotive project. It becomes a reflection of how ambition, internet fame, and real life all intersect in ways that are not always visible on screen. As the Bugatti rebuild story continues, it becomes clear that this is no longer just a one-time project. It slowly turns into something much bigger, something that affects daily life in a way that is hard to separate from normal living. For Matt Armstrong, the work does not stop when the camera turns off. Even when filming ends, the thinking continues, planning the next step, solving problems, and dealing with unexpected issues becomes part of his routine. This is how large rebuild projects often grow into a lifestyle rather than just a job. The garage is no longer just a workspace. It becomes the center of everything. Time, energy, and attention all start to revolve around it. For someone like Matt, who has built his career around documenting automotive rebuilds, this level of commitment is part of the process. But for people around him, especially Hannah, it creates a different kind of reality. Life becomes structured around schedules that are unpredictable, updates that change quickly, and goals that are constantly shifting. Even simple plans can be affected by sudden developments in the project. This is where the difference between passion and pressure becomes visible. What starts as an exciting challenge can slowly turn into something that demands constant attention. At the same time, the audience only sees selected moments. The exciting reveals, the progress updates, and the dramatic problems. They do not see the long hours of thinking, waiting for parts, or dealing with setbacks that do not make it into videos. This gap between what is shown and what is lived is important in understanding the full story. Hannah's role becomes even more important in this stage. because she is part of the stability that keeps life balanced while everything else becomes focused on one major project. The Bugatti is not just a car being rebuilt anymore. It is a force that shapes routines, decisions, and emotions in ways that are not always visible from the outside. And that is what makes this story feel more real than just another Internet Automotive series. With every update posted online, the expectation around the Bugatti rebuild grows stronger. Millions of viewers are now invested in the outcome, and this creates a pressure that is not just technical, but emotional as well. When people follow a project so closely, they begin to form opinions, predictions, and even demands about how things should go. This in turn a creative and technical challenge into something that feels like a public test. For Matt Armstrong, this means every step of the rebuild carries meaning beyond the garage. Success is celebrated widely, but mistakes are also seen and discussed by a large audience. This constant visibility can influence how decisions are made, even unintentionally. For Hannah, the experience is different but still affected by the same pressure. She is not part of the online debate, but she still lives in an environment created by it. When something becomes a viral topic, it does not stay online. It enters conversations at home, affects mood, and shapes how people experience daily life. The Bugatti story is a perfect example of how internet attention can extend beyond screens. It becomes part of real life for everyone connected to it. This is especially true when the project involves something as rare and expensive as a Bugatti Chiron per sport. The scale of the car itself adds to the weight of expectation. People are not just watching a rebuild. They are watching a test of skill, patience, and possibility. Every small update feels important because the stakes are so high. In this environment, silence from people like Hannah is often misunderstood by audiences. But in reality, silence can simply mean focus, balance, and try to maintain normal life while something extraordinary happens in the background. The pressure of expectation is not always loud. Sometimes it builds quietly over time, affecting people in ways that are not immediately visible on camera or in comments. Behind every major automotive project that gains attention online, there's always an emotional cost that is rarely discussed in detail. The Bugatti rebuild is no different. While viewers focus on engineering challenges and progress milestones, there's another layer of experience that happens away from public view. For Matt Armstrong, the emotional side comes from responsibility, pressure, and the constant need to solve problems that do not have simple answers. Every major decision carries weight, especially when dealing with a rare and extremely valuable car. But for Hannah, the emotional experience is shaped differently. She is not making technical decisions, but she is still living in